primary phenotypic trait for their obstructive sleep apnea will respond to interventions aiming at reducing the mood pain. And finally, this is all fine and well. We now have a couple of different things that we can think about when we see patients with sleep apnea. Are they having problems, or is sleep apnea physiologically facilitated by abnormalities of mood pain or arousal threshold or upper airway structure and or responsiveness? But it's not easy to measure. Right? Everything I've shown you has been using mostly tight fitting masks, pneumotachographs, and invasive techniques. So you can't really do that in the sleep laboratory. It's not practical. At least that's the state of the art from about 2012, 2013. What I'm going to show you now is a series of experiments that are bringing that science down to the practical level, so that in the clinical sleep laboratory we might be able to employ some of these metrics to identify physiologic subtypes and help us personalize treatment. So this was the first and I think probably the easiest of these experiments to understand. This was a group that was trying to identify the arousal threshold based on commonly measured metrics in polysomnography or in sleep testing. So what you're looking at here is the electroencephalogram at the top two tracings. The third tracing is your esophageal pressure or epiglotic pressure. The next tracing is your nasal pressure signal or airflow, if you will. And then you have oxygen saturation signal here at the bottom. So you can see that there's no airflow, there's desaturation, there's airflow, there's resaturation. So this is your typical obstructive apnea patient. And so all they did is said, okay, where are the arousals? Mark it in gray. All right, and at what intrathoracic pressure nadir did these arousals occur? And that's how they identified the arousal threshold. This pressure, the amount of neural output is sufficient to lead to arousal from sleep. The amount of respiratory neural output is sufficient. Well, what correlates on polysomnography? So you take all the different variables we measure on polysomnography, you do regression analysis, and say which factors on polysomnography are capable of predicting the arousal threshold. Turns out there's really only three predictors, which is the total apnea-hypopnea index, the minimum or the nadir of oxyhemoglobin saturation during apnea and hypopnea, and the frequency of hypopneas as compared to the frequency of apnea. Using this, they came up with this little, you can derive a clinical score by allocating one point to each of the criteria satisfied. So if your apnea and hypopnea index is less than 30, you get a point. If your minimum oxyhemoglobin saturation is above 82.5%, you get a point. If the frequency of hypopneas relative to apnea is 58.3% or more, you receive a point. And what this shows is that if you score 2 or more, that predicts the low arousal threshold with reasonably good sensitivity and specificity. Now, all of these metrics are commonly available in polysomnography: AHI, minimum oxygen saturation, and the frequency of hypopneas. So these are things that we can now measure without having to have an intraesophageal probe or an epiglottic probe, without having to have a genioglossus EEG, without having to have a pneumotachograph and a tight-fitting nasal mask. And in fact, at the University of Miami, we've been able to operationalize this by simply putting into our sleep scoring algorithms by putting in some logic into the analysis of mechanisms so that it can spit out for us whether or not this is below arousal threshold or not. We can take this one step further and actually come up with a number of what the arousal threshold would be in some blood pressure. Now, part of the problem with having arousal threshold measured as sonometry with water and having some of our other markers measured as ventilation is that the two units are the same. And it would be nice to be able to see arousal threshold, mood gain, collapsibility of the upper airway, and upper airway gain all measured in one ordinate scale so that we can put them together on one plot and see in a given patient what's the range and what's the chances that we might be able to fix those derangements by modifying one of those factors. So this is what this group from Boston did. In essence, they obstruction of the upper airway by a pressure drop in CPAP. And then they look at the response to the looping response in the fashion I've shown you earlier. But they also consider the arousal contribution to ventilation and the decay in the signal. The decay in the signal tells you something about timing, how fast the chemical system is sensing and responding. When you do this kind of an experiment, you'd expect a slight delay for chemical drive to build up based on the circulatory time between the lungs and the receptors in the brain. So this initial delay in this model, this is a mathematical model, is based on chemical drive, and then, the circulatory drive. Then you can model based on the decay, the rise in chemical drive to breathe. And at the point of arousal, you go back and say, at what ventilation did this arousal occur? So you can now plot arousal as a ventilation number as opposed to a pressure number, which allows you to then put it on the same graph with loop gain and with upper airway gain and with some of the other metrics. In order to test this model, which essentially was mathematically derived and plotted to the best fit over normal waveforms of polysomnography and pressure drops, they compared it to the standard way of measuring loop gain. As you can see, the relationship is quite tight. This was reproduced in a number of different ways and over across nights. So you can use this mathematical model to estimate loop gain and have a loop gain that approximates that derived by the gold standard. Why is this important? Well, because now you no longer have to have a new tachograph necessarily to make these measurements. To remove one piece of instrumentation to make it simpler. It also is important because you can now plot all these many different factors that physiologic phenotypes that are important in the pathogenesis for sleep apnea on one graph. And what I'm showing you here is a series of different plots for different patients. For example, this patient here does not have sleep apnea, right? So this is your plot here, loop gain. This is 1 over loop gain. This is your arousal. This is vertical point is the arousal threshold. And here what you have is the responsiveness of the upper airway. Upper airway responsiveness. So if you have, for example, a plot like this, where arousal response is after the intersection of loop gain and upper airway responsiveness, then this person will develop a steady state ventilation here before ever reaching the arousal threshold. So that person does not have sleep apnea. And that's why you see that the AHI here, for example, I think is 1. On the other hand, if you have someone like down here whose AHI is 112, where loop gain is fairly high, the upper airway responsiveness is very poor, these two will never intersect the arousal threshold. And there's very little you can do to a case like this one. Again, loop gain very high, arousal, and upper airway responsiveness, and upper airway critical closing pressure on the lower end of the spectrum, and arousal here. There's very little you can do to modify these two, or this one, to get it to the point where you're going to develop steady state ventilation. So this is a waste of time trying to manipulate with azolpicone or things that alter loop gain, because you will never get to intersect and develop a steady state ventilation before the arousal threshold. And that's the value of being able to plot these parameters with the same units of measurement, i.e. respiratory drive or ventilation as a surrogate for respiratory drive. This has been retested, looking now for this particular study primarily at pharyngeal pathophysiology with polysomnography. And here, the idea was that, okay, we've been doing all these experiments now with pressure drops from CPAP. So you have sleep apnea, I know that, I put you on CPAP, I get rid of your sleep apnea, and I drop the pressure and I allow it to reoccur, and I challenge you. Well, that's cumbersome. Can't we just do this and assume that the obstructive apnea episode itself is the disturbance, and the recovery from an obstructive apnea episode is a response, and not have to do a pressure drop? It would be much simpler. We could construct the parameters of interest without necessarily having any additional instrumentation. And that's what this particular study was aiming to do. So they looked at phenotyping differential pathophysiology using polysomnography, meaning what's the critical closing pressure of the upper airway, and what's the responsiveness of the upper airway, measured by conventional polysomnography, compared with a more standard pressure drop technique and measuring of ventilation with a tachograph and a tight-fitting legal mask. So when you look at these two, you compare the gold standard, the relationship is pretty tight. Whether or not you use continuous positive airway pressure manipulation, i.e. the pressure drop, there is no difference no significant difference in the correlations. And the estimates, effectively stratify patients correctly into high versus low subgroups for the phenotype of interest. To me, perhaps more importantly, that the traits were nearly identical when you're using conventional nasal pressure, which is something we use in every single polysomnogram, as opposed to a tachograph, which is a special instrument that requires additional cost and is quite burdensome for patients to use during sleep. So this essentially takes the ability to measure upper airway pathophysiology and simplifies it to the point where we can use existing polysomnography tracings to create a model of our patients. So I hope I've showed you that we can measure arousal threshold, anatomic phenotypes, and loop gain using conventional polysomnography. But what is the value of that besides just being able to pick out who I'm going to give maybe a sulfapone to or who I'm going to give oxygen to change medium to? Well, we can answer some clinical conundrums based on this data. For example, why do non-obese patients have sleep apnea? Why are they different than obese patients? Or why don't all obese patients have sleep apnea? Well, if you ask that question, why don't all obese patients have sleep apnea, and you apply this kind of a model, now this was done with the invasive techniques, not with the non-invasive techniques that I just showed you. Here's what you'll find. Okay, so this is a small group of patients. The NOSA means that these are patients who do not have obstructive sleep apnea. OSA means that they do have obstructive sleep apnea, and then a controlled portion of the controlled population. So these are obese patients, no sleep apnea, obese patients, sleep apnea, controlled. If you look, the BMI is in the 30s for both groups of patients with sleep apnea and without. Of course, the controls are not. And the indices for sleep apnea are depicted here. So the AHI in the patients who are not obese, obese but do not have sleep apnea is about 8. Those who are obese and have sleep apnea is about 42. And it turns out that what separates these two groups is that the non-obese patients, the obese patients without sleep apnea, have much better upper airway responsiveness. So what separates them from an obese patient with or without sleep apnea has everything to do with how the upper airway responds to this challenge. So maybe you should look at that as a probe to treat the obese patients with sleep apnea. This slide is meant to show you that all the other factors were measured. So loop gain was measured, arousal threshold was measured, the only one that predicted where they separated obese patients without and with sleep apnea was the pharyngeal closing pressure and the upper airway gain being challenged. As I said, being sleep. What else can we do with this information? Well, maybe we can predict surgical outcomes. So this paper was designed to go back and look at surgical outcomes in relationship to specifically loop gain derived from polysomnography in a retrospective sample. So now you've had all these polysomnograms that have been done. You simply take the mathematical model and you plot the waveform signals into the mathematical model. You derive loop gain and you look and see who had successful surgery and how you can separate them out. This is a group of 46 patients. The surgery ended up reducing AHI and arousal threshold but not changing loop gain. The important part was that low loop gain was a significant predictor of surgical success, but perhaps the converse might be even more important, that high loop gain predicted success, surgical failure. So this might be another avenue for us to explore physiologic phenotypes and how we direct management of our patients. Perhaps we shouldn't be sending patients for surgery who have high loop gain. And finally, I didn't have time to make the slide, but there is one study looking at using these types of techniques to separate older patients with sleep apnea and younger similar patients with sleep apnea, and looking at the differences. And it turns out that as we age, the primary factor that predisposes us to sleep apnea is pharyngeal abnormalities of the collapsibility of the upper airway, and not so much leak gain or arousal threshold. So if you want, this is borrowing a slide from Dr. Malhotra, looking at potential risk factors for sleep apnea, and pathogenic mechanisms in the middle green panel, and at the bottom, kind of a salmon-colored panel, possible treatments. Let's just follow one of these. So if you have, for example, respiratory instability, you may want to use high loop gain, you may want to use drugs or oxygen. If you have an arousal threshold issue, you may want to use a hypnotic. Low arousal threshold, you may want to use a sedative hypnotic in that patient population. If you have poor upper airway motor tone, then maybe hypoglossal nerve stimulation or the upper airway pacemaker, if you will, might be appropriate. The other thing is this particular slide points out that while this is all fine and very elegant, at the end of the day, CPAP doesn't really care what pathogenic mechanism you have. It keeps the airway open and stabilizes breathing. So if you can get your patients to tolerate CPAP, that continues to be the number one therapy for obstructive CPAP. This is really primarily for patients who do not have or may not tolerate CPAP or don't have access to CPAP. Alternatives. So I hope that I've given you an insight into how we need to look at sleep apnea patients and at least to understand the differences between our thinner population of sleep apnea patients, our older population of sleep apnea patients, perhaps in the future, gender differences in terms of sleep apnea. And problems that I see moving forward is that although we can now make these measurements with routine polysomnography, the mathematical model that we need to incorporate is not routinely available. So yes, it's out there, it uses MATLAB, it requires some sophisticated, not sophisticated, sort of tedious, if you will, overlying signals and formulas. But once that's done, then you can run through the study and obtain all your parameters for releases, but it's still not commercially available. And the mechanisms underlying, again, in the case of sleep apnea, as I showed you earlier, can be variable. So we still have to deal with that. And what if just one perturbation contributes to the case compared to the other? And then we have to adopt these things. We have to standardize them. Not just look at the graphs, but also what's actually the normal pattern. To 10 to 5, etc., to make it easier for clinicians to be able to deploy this in clinical practice. And we have to identify the relationship between a unique physiologic phenotype or phenotypes and specific outcomes. Maybe patients with upper airway problems are more prone to cardiovascular disease, for example. And then we have to demonstrate that treatment based on phenotyping actually improves our outcomes, at least our treatment outcomes and ideally our healthcare outcomes. Having said all that, I think I've taken up enough of your time today, I hope. I didn't bore you tremendously, but again, if you took a little nap, that's okay. I did my job well. And I honestly hope that this challenged you to look at patients with sleep apnea a little differently. They're not all obese. They don't all have the same underlying mechanisms, and they may not all respond equally to the same therapy. So I'll take questions.
So, great talk. Thank you very much. I guess the issue for us in primary care is, do you foresee a time when we'll have some type of tool in outpatient practices where we can make educated decisions about patients and treatment type? And I think ultimately, our ability to refer patients to specialized time frame do you think that we can have instruments to use in the office?
Those are already there. So home sleep apnea testing is a common tool that's used and accepted for diagnosing obstructive sleep apnea. What home sleep apnea testing will not give you is any of these fancy physiologic parameters, which, quite frankly, at the moment, most sleep laboratories, including our own, are not yet equipped to measure them and to deliver that information to you. But the home sleep apnea testing is a reasonable tool. One of my other talks that I like to give is the diagnosis and management of sleep apnea without polysyllabic. So both diagnosing and treating can be done effectively in well-selected patient subtypes without necessarily the sleep lab. Now, one of the issues you brought up earlier, on your slide, you had a range of up to 17 to 85% in terms of adherence to CPAP. Well, what's clear is that 85% occurs in patients who are seen by sleep doctors and managed in sleep laboratories. So, how do we take that and make that part of your practices? I think it's a challenge. The tools are there. But how do we get it so that we bring your adherence up to ours? And I think part of the reason there's a difference is because sleep apnea is not the only thing that bothers people that keeps them from sleeping well. It's not uncommon for patients with sleep apnea to have also pulmonary insomnia or restless legs. And if the insomnia is a bigger part of the sleep complaint than the sleep apnea, then treating sleep apnea won't fix it and won't make them feel any better, and they will not want to hear. What's absolutely clear about treating obstructive sleep apnea with positive airway pressure therapy is that patients who feel better use it, and patients who don't, unless they're bed partners, force them to use it.
Thank you for your wonderful lecture. I'm Dr. Mazumdar. I'd like to ask you, all this detailed thing that you did in the lab about the loop gain and everything, how you can bring this to a clinical practice when we do a sleep study, we don't look into that kind of detail that can ultimately affect the treatment option and also after usual treatment, when patients are not doing significantly well, how we can figure it out that what kind of loop gain or arousal threshold, those things, they might be affecting unsatisfactory treatment on the patient part. As a clinician, how we can bring this information that you just told us into the practice.
So the question is, how do we make these tools operational for clinicians? And the answer is, as far as arousal threshold, that's done. You can do that today. Because all you need to know is the percentage of hypopneas to apneas, your lowest oxygen saturation, and whether your AHI is above 30 or not. That's it. That's available in every single polysomnogram. So that's done. The remainder of it, and really the more elegant aspects of it, to look at, to be able to plot all the different physiologic phenotypes on one XY graph and be able to really understand where our patients lie in terms of their phenotypes, is going to require that the mathematical model that was developed by the group at the Brigham become commercially available. And once that's commercially available and it's simplified, then it's just a matter of taking what you already have, applying the mathematical model into it, taking the waveforms and applying the mathematical model into it, and it'll drive the factors for you. In fact, in that study, the surgical study, that's what was done. It was prospective. These people already had surgery. They went back to the original polysomnograms, overlaid the mathematical model of the polysomnogram, and developed loop gain and looked at loop gain. So these things it's going to happen. How long it's going to take depends on industry. I've had conversations with my faculty about maybe me going over to the Brigham and spending some time there and seeing what they do. How they do it, and maybe trying to incorporate that into our own practice. But that takes, obviously, it's an expense, it takes time away from the practice, and I'm hoping industry will make that operational for us. But for arousal threshold, you can do that today. It was by computer. So the tracings were fed into the computer, and they were fit by hand. The analysis was by non-REM stage 2 sleep. And they would do 2 or 3 pressure drops across the night. The overnight polysomnograms, where they didn't have any pressure drops, they would just take an existing polysomnogram and run it through. I don't recall how many minutes at a time they would look at, but I think they used more or less the same thing. They would use steady state, supine, non-REM stage 2 sleep, and then they would fit the mathematical model over that. But as you know, Larry, these things are going to get better and better, and more accurate and more accurate. It's just a matter of time. But I thought the body of literature was very different, and the approach to sleep using physiologic phenotypes offers a new look into our patient population, and it also offers us an opportunity to understand why not all of these patients have obstructive sleep apnea, and what makes some of them different than others, and that might offer a probe into those that are obese. Maybe we have to focus more on upper airway gain or upper airway size in that patient population. Thank you, and happy dreams.
It was a brilliant presentation by Dr. Alejandro Chadak, and please give a round of applause for We're going to have a little break, and before I go into the break, let me tell you that if you have any questions, please come to the mic to talk, because we are also recording, so it will be good to have that recorded. And the next lecture is going to be Alberto Ramos. We're going to start because we have the time, so we're going to take a break right now, and we will start at 10 o'clock. Alberto Ramos. Are you here? Yeah. So I'm going to introduce you when